Okay, back on the Rich Van Tassel channel. Today is Monday, September 14th. We're going to go breaking down the games from Sunday in the NFL, along with, along with the Thursday night game, which was the Steelers against the Patriots. First, got to make a statement. When I was predicting the games the other day, I was lazy. With the Packers game, I said that Jordan Nelson was going to have a big day. Obviously, Jordan Nelson is out for the season. It was laziness on my part. I wasn't giving that game much thought at all. I thought that the Packers were going to walk right over the Bears, and I wasn't paying any attention to what I was saying. So a viewer brought that to my attention, and I appreciate that. I welcome feedback, and I'm not going to be lazy again. So thank you to the viewer for pointing that out for me, and I will do my best to make sure those situations don't happen again. So we'll go from there. I want to start with the games that I missed yesterday, along with the game I missed on Thursday because I predicted the Steelers. We're going to start with Seattle and St. Louis, a game that went basically how I thought it was going to go. I said that St. Louis was going to play Seattle tough, and they did. Obviously, they won the game. I thought Seattle had finally taken control, and Kerry Williams returned that fumble for a touchdown. And I thought when it went to overtime, Russell Wilson was going to take over and be clutch, and I was going to be proved prophetic. It didn't happen. There was obviously a 4th and 1 play that the Seahawks went to Marshawn Lynch. I don't know if Pete Carroll was doing it for public relations reasons, being how last year's Super Bowl went down. I hope that's not the case. But it just shows that it goes either way. He could have run the ball in the Super Bowl. Marshawn Lynch could have gotten stopped. He could have passed the ball here and it wouldn't gotten stopped. It doesn't, sometimes the defense just makes plays. So that's what happened yesterday for the Seattle side of the ball. Russell Wilson did play well, threw the ball 41 times. I don't know if that's what they're looking for. Marshawn Lynch, 73 yards, over 4 yards per carry. And the receivers, Jermaine Kearse played well. We talked about Seattle's average wide receivers. He had 76 yards receiving. Jimmy Graham, a touchdown, but only 51 yards through the air, so you expected a little more from him. I thought that Seattle's defense didn't play well, as you would expect. We're going to see if Cam Chancellor, if he's going to shore that up. I don't know if it was all Cam Chancellor, if Nick Foles just had a good day and was able to light him up. I mean, Foles threw for 297 yards on only 18 completions, so that you really don't see that against the Seattle secondary. Tavon Austin was good yesterday, both rushing and receiving the ball. 17, rushing yards and a touchdown. But their other running game wasn't too good. This is where I question St. Louis, so we'll see how they go about that in the future. So that was the Seahawks and the Rams. Another game that I missed on was the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns. Maybe cut me a little slack here. I wasn't expecting that McCown was going to get a concussion and go out of the game. Obviously, when Johnny Manziel comes in and he's going to turn the ball over 5 times, you don't expect that that there's going to be much success for your team that day. I stated that Ryan Fitzpatrick can make plays. He did make some yesterday. I told you he can win a game, but not expect the Jets to probably lose a little bit. I still think that they'll need Geno Smith. They'll need him to play if this team wants to have any success. But they're off to the right track. One team was going to start this year 1-0, as we said, and that's what happened. Brandon Marshall was too much for Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden's a much better player than that. I don't know what happened, but he was just getting beat all day. And as good as Brandon Marshall is, he's a phenomenal wide receiver. I really expected more from Joe Hayden. I thought the Browns' offensive line did pretty well, as I expected to do. I thought they'd hold up. However, it just wasn't going to happen when you turn the ball over 5 times. That's how it works in the NFL, and especially with a team that's on its backup quarterback and devoid of talent, especially in the playmaker positions on offense, you're not going to overcome those turnovers. So it was another game I missed. Another game that I was very much off on was the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. Obviously, Houston's defense was not getting the pressure I expected they would on Alex Smith. I've told you Alex Smith is a much better player than people want to give him any credit for. Let me get the stats right now. He was 22 of 33 for 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, the guy has been given an opportunity to play, and once that happened, he's played very well. Jamal Charles rushing and passing the ball, or receiving the ball, over 100 yards all together. He's a fast guy. He can do well in that offense. I should have known Andy Reid was going to do better. He's usually good on opening days, usually good coming out of bye weeks. So when you give Andy Reid an extended amount of time to prepare, he's usually going to be very good. So I did make a mistake there. Obviously, the Ryan Mallett question, he came in yesterday, played much better than Brian Hoyer. I want to touch on this for just a brief second here because I don't know why Ryan Mallett wasn't starting this season, and I suspect it's still because of his quote-unquote character concerns. Now, if you remember, Ryan Mallett, his character concerns was when he went to Michigan. He wanted to play in a pro-style offense under then coach Lloyd Carr, so this was a few years ago. Then Rich Rodriguez came in and he wanted to transfer and not sit out a year because Rich Rodriguez is not running a pro-style offense. It just doesn't fit. Ryan Mallett's a 6'8" guy, your prototypical pro-style quarterback. Rich Rodriguez runs an option offense. Now, he took the NCAA to court in order to play, and he wasn't successful in his endeavors to not have to sit out a season when he transferred. Now, there was, other issues, marijuana. There's a lot of guys who smoke marijuana in the NFL, so I think this is a big issue, and truthfully, it's really not fair to Ryan Mallett that he still hasn't been able to shake this and been given an opportunity in the NFL. Frankly, he should have been allowed to transfer without sitting out in the first place, so we'll see if Ryan Mallett will play. Again, I have Houston going to the playoffs. I don't think they're going to do Brian Hoyer. He was 18 for 34 for only 236 yards yesterday. So you're throwing that many times and you're not completing that many passes and you're turning the ball over way too much. He did have only one interception, but also a fumble, which cost him dearly. So I was wrong on that one. Kansas City, obviously, looked very good. Alex Smith is a good player, so we'll see if Kansas City can't make noise. And I stated that in that situation, that could be a game that comes back at the end of the year for the wild card situation. So now Kansas City has the upper hand, and that might just put them in the playoffs. All right. We were also off on the Oakland Raiders. I picked them to do good things this year, and maybe I was premature because it's sure looking like the same old Raiders here in Oakland. They got pounded yesterday. Now, we know that the Bengals have talent. We know that they have that defensive line, but you have to really wonder with the Oakland Raiders, if this isn't going to be the time you turn around, when is it ever going to happen? So I don't know what to make of them. Derek Carr got hurt. Matt McGloin came in, so that could have been part of the reason they were getting pounded earlier, though. Andy Dalton was very impressive, 269 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns. Tyler Eifert, the tight end, really shredded him up. I was expecting A.J. Green to have a big day. He had 63 yards, nothing impressive. But again, just going back to the Oakland Raiders, you really have to wonder where they're going. Derek Carr was playing well before he got hurt, but nothing spectacular. Latavius Murray, we talked about him, a guy who was over 5 yards per carry on limited carries last year, had exactly 4 yards per carry yesterday, 44 yards on 11 carries. Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, 10 catches for 84 yards between the both of them, no touchdowns. Need more out of them. And the defense obviously wasn't very good because they gave up 33 points and no sacks. So it was Cincinnati's offensive line that was holding up and not the Oakland Raiders. So I'm going to hold in with Oakland, see if they can't correct what their situation is. But, I might be put my foot in my mouth with that one, so we'll see how that goes. Come to the end of the year. Also, I was off on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Tennessee Titans. Now, give me a little slack here. I'm trying to predict 2 teams that were 2-14 last year with rookie quarterbacks. I mean, it's more like the blind leading the blind there, but we said in the season preview, Marcus Mariota, how his game would translate in the NFL. It looked very good yesterday. You just don't know with those Oregon quarterbacks. And we'll see if he can keep it up. I mean, he was just slicing the dice and only 16 passes, but completed 13 of them. James Winston was did not play well, throwing interceptions all over the field. His first pass was an interception for a touchdown. So we'll see how it goes on. Will Marcus Mariota get solved out and not have the success in the future? James Winston, how is he going to go? So we'll see how that works out for the rest of those guys' careers. And going back to Thursday night, that was the last game we missed. I thought that the Steelers were game. I thought they'd come out ready to play, and as I expected, as I stated, they would. Really, what it came down to was they just didn't cash in their opportunities. They got to the red zone enough and were settling for field goals, missed field goals, so that's what killed them. And Tom Brady, he's a gamer. He's going to come out focused, especially after the offseason he had, and they got the job done. So that was basically that game. I don't know if the Steelers are going to what they're going to do as far as their kicking situation, if they're going to cut their kicker, but we'll see how it goes. Certainly you'd expect any organization to figure out it would be Pittsburgh, but they, like any team, you can't miss opportunities when you're down in the red zone. You can't settle for too many field goals. So going to the games we got right yesterday, the Packers and the Bears. It was 31-23. I had it 34-17, so I was a little off on the score with the Packers winning. But I said Jay Cutler was going to make a mistake. He did, through cost an interception at the end of the game, and that was that. So Jay Cutler, don't expect Chicago to do much with Jay Cutler at quarterback. The next game was the Buffalo Bills. I said they beat the Indianapolis Colts, and gotta pat myself on the back here. I said Tyrod Taylor would be very impressive in his debut, finally given a chance. He was. Rex Ryan really is going to help this defense. I didn't know if it was going to come on as fast as it did. They were without Marcel Darius, and they really shut down Andrew Luck. So Buffalo might, be able to take New England for at least a run of this division here. We'll see how it goes. Tyrod Taylor, he's still got a long way to go. He's essentially a rookie quarterback. I mean, he's a rookie quarterback who understands what's going on because he's been in the league as a backup, but he still hasn't played much. So it's better than having just your average rookie coming in, but it'd be like the same as if a guy was just sitting for a couple of years and watching him learning. So it was impressive though, and if he can really solidify that quarterback position, Buffalo can make some noise. The Dolphins and the Redskins. We said that Miami was going to rally behind Kirk Cousins. They somewhat did. I mean, only 10 points. Miami struggled. Tannehill was 22 of 34 for 226 yards. Didn't really rush the ball well. Lamar Miller 53 yards, over 4.1 yards per carry. I mean, I think the lack of running or big running numbers is indicative of just where the league's going nowadays. Jordan Cameron surprisingly was their best receiver. You didn't get really anything out of the rest of the receivers. Jarvis Landry had 8 catches, but only for 53 yards. I mean, 8 catches, you gotta be going for at least 70 yards or something, but that's really not the best, sort of numbers to have when you have 8 catches in a game. As for Washington, Kirk Cousins, 21 of 31, 196 yards. 1 TD, 2 interceptions. Now, you're really telling me Robert Griffin III can't give you those numbers? I have no clue what is going on in that Washington Redskins locker room. Alfred Morris was huge yesterday, 25 carries, 121 yards. That's almost 5 yards per carry. Garcon played pretty well. Jordan Reed, the tight end, they also were doing, pretty well throwing the ball, but I just don't know. I don't see why Robert Griffin III can't play. They must really be having problems, him and Jake Booth. We also, just bringing them up. The Panthers and the Jaguars. Now I had this game 27-16. It was 20-9. So I had the 11 points for the Panthers with just a touchdown off on each side. I was expecting a little more from Jacksonville's offense. It didn't happen. I knew that Cam Newton was not going to allow the Carolina Panthers to lose this game. I don't think Carolina's going to make the playoffs. Newton wasn't great, 18 of 31 for 175 yards. Running the ball 35 yards on 14 carries though. I don't want to see Cam Newton running the ball 14 times, and if he does, he better get more than 35 yards. The wide receivers, Ted Ginn had 54 yards, but on 2 catches. He's a speed guy, so we know Ted Ginn can make those big plays. They need a more consistent weapon though, and Jericho Cotchery 4 for 45, their other top wide receiver. You're going to need more than that to replace Kelvin Benjamin. Greg Olsen only 1 catch for 11 yards. Without Kelvin Benjamin, Greg Olsen needs to step up big time. On the Jacksonville side of the ball, Blake Bortles, 22 of 40, 183 for 183 yards. Got to get those interceptions down. TJ Yeldon rushed the ball for 51 yards on 12 carries. Again, over 4 yards per carry, just not many carries. So I would like to see Jacksonville run the ball a bit more, especially with Blake Bortles bringing them around. Receiving wise, Allen Hurns, 60 yards on 5 catches, about average. Again, this team is not very good. They're gonna improve, but I'd like to see at least a touchdown, for your opening day game to make sure they're moving in the right direction. So move on from there. If you're Jacksonville, keep working, keep continuing to get better. Next up, Detroit lost to the San Diego Chargers. I had the game 28-24, I believe, for San Diego winning. It was 33-28, so we were pretty close on the score there. Didn't miss by much. Stafford, 2 interceptions. You can't have that. Didn't run the ball at all. Their top rusher was only 50 yards. Calvin Johnson was held in check. 2 catches for 39 yards. You got to wonder with Calvin Johnson, fully recovered from that injury. On the other hand, Philip Rivers threw the ball a ton. We knew that was going to happen. He was going to expose that suspect secondary. 35 for 42, 404 yards. Did have 2 interceptions, but did have 2 touchdowns. They stuck to the running game. Melvin Gordon, their number 1 pick, but 51 yards on 14 carries. That's under 4 yards per carry. Keenan Allen, we talked about, one of the big wide receivers. Philip Rivers finding him downfield. 15 catches, 166 yards. So Stevie Johnson, 6 catches, 82 yards. Malcolm Floyd, only 1 catch, but it was a 29-yarder. Not much from. Doesn't look like Antonio Gates had any carries yesterday. Ladarius Green, another big target, 74 carries. So Philip Rivers exposed that secondary just as we were talking about with his big wide receivers. So basically right on that game, just a few more points on both sides. Was the difference there. Just load them up, just a second. Cardinals beating the Saints. I had it 28-20. The score was 31-19. Again, we were only off by a few points on that one. Drew Brees threw the ball 48 times, had 18 incompletions. He's gonna have to correct that. 355 yards. Well, if you have 30 completions, that's you're gonna get that many yards. He likes to go downfield, did that in pick. They didn't run the ball worth anything. Mark Ingram, the top runner, 9 carries, 24 yards. You really got to be better. I know New Orleans likes to pass, but you have to have a better running game than that. Receiving side, Mark Ingram was their top wide receiver, 8 catches for 98 yards. So looked like Arizona made the concerted effort to shut down Drew Brees' wide receivers, and we talked about Patrick Peterson being a big part of that. So he really took a step in the right direction for Defensive Player of the Year, because when Mark Ingram's getting 8 catches for 98 yards as a running back, you know that Drew Brees does not have a lot to work with downfield. So there's how that went. So Patrick Peterson, look out for him for Defensive Player of the Year. Carson Palmer, 19-32, 307, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He plays like that, they're going to be hard to beat. Chris Johnson, 10 carries, 37 yards. He's not going to carry that much of a workload, a little under 4 yards per carry. Andre Ellington was good, almost 6 yards per carry. It's 69 yards on 12 carries. Larry Fitzgerald back to form, 6 catches for 87 yards, but he didn't have a touchdown. So Arizona looked quite impressive yesterday. I'm wondering about New Orleans. They didn't have a good year last year. I wonder if there's still a little bit of a hangover and there's more to what's wrong with that team than regionally meets the eye. Expect a little more from them. And we also have the Broncos and the Ravens now. The Ravens defense was game, as we expected, as I had stated, but their offense could not do anything. I don't know what was up with Baltimore's offense yesterday. This game was on. I was able to watch it. Joe Flacco looked terrible. You couldn't find Steve Smith. They just couldn't do anything. The first time in the red zone was when they were driving to score a touchdown to win the game at the end until Joe Flacco threw an interception. This is but that's how Baltimore does it. They're still somehow in a position to win. Flacco, 18 of 32 for 117 yards and 2 interceptions. 18 completions and all you're getting is 117 yards. That's like what, 6 yards per completion? It's 7 yards per completion. It's not gonna get the job done. Forsett, 43 yards on 14 carries. This was just a bad offensive performance. And frankly, Denver wasn't much better. I had this game, I believe it was like 30-17. Peyton Manning 175 yards on 24 completions. Again, that's about 7 yards per completion there. A little bit less than 7 yards. Ronnie Hillman 41 yards on 12 carries. Emmanuel Sanders had a pretty decent day, 8 catches for 65 yards. Demaryius Thomas 7 for 60. So Jimmy Smith did what we expected him to do, and that happened. But that was one ugly game. I don't know what I don't know what was going on there. So Denver won though, as I expected them to. I guess Baltimore's offense played sort of as I expected. I didn't think they'd be that bad, but I didn't think they'd be that good either. But that's how it happened. And then, of course, the Sunday night game, the Cowboys, big time comeback over the New York Giants. A lot's going to be made about whether the Giants should have run the ball on that last play of the game. Frankly, the pass call, the play you're calling, if you're going to call the pass, that was the correct type of play to call. A rollout where Eli Manning has a run pass option, or in that case, a pass sack option. Eli Manning just has to sit down there. If Eli Manning doesn't throw the ball out of the back of the end zone, there's no problem. That's where Tom Coughlin said in the post game that it was totally on him. I mean, he's clearly taking the bullet for Eli because that's totally on Eli Manning. He knows better than that, and all he had to do was just fall down. Now, had he taken the sack there, Romo would have had about 58 seconds. I mean, he absolutely carved them up on the last drive of that game. So I don't know if he wouldn't have been able to do it in 58 seconds. He was masterful in the time he had. Left only 7 seconds on the clock. The Giants were terrible on that last drive. If their defense is going to play that poorly, they don't stand much of a chance on drives like that. For the rest of the game, they were pretty good. Eli wasn't good at all. 20 of 36, 193 yards. It's 5.4 yards per completion. No. I mean, he's got to be better than that. No touchdowns. Running back, Rashad Jennings, 4 yards per carry exactly. 13 carries for 52 yards. Odell Beckham Jr. was held in check. We're going to get into that in a moment. Give a side note with this game. Obviously, now Dez Bryant didn't play much. He's gone for 4 to 6 weeks. Cowboys will have to stay afloat there. But Romo, 36 of 45, 356, 3 touchdowns. The 2 interceptions, were kind of on batted balls, so you still don't like to see it, but he was sensational last night, obviously on the last drive. Joseph Randle, 16 carries, 65 yards. They abandoned the running game basically in the fourth quarter, so his numbers I think would have been a lot better. 16 for 65 isn't bad. McFadden only 6 for 16, so the running back situation with the Cowboys, there was a lot of question marks, but I would have suspected had the Cowboys not had to throw the ball late because they were down 10 obviously, and then had that last drive of the game, that you would have seen Joseph Randle's a couple more carries. He would have been right around 85, 90 yards for that game, which is fine. I mean, you get 90 yards a game, you're going to go well over 1,000. Romo dispersed the ball very nicely. Lance Dunbar surprisingly out of the backfield, playing well. There was talk that he's going to be using the Darren Sproles mold for Dallas, and they're going to need him certainly with Dez Bryant out for about a month. Jason Witten, spectacular game-winning touchdown as well. 8 catches for 60 yards. I guess I was pretty foolish. I made a statement last year that Jason Witten is the most overrated player in history. I guess I gotta eat some crow with that one. Terrence Williams, did pretty well. We're gonna see how well these guys do without Dez Bryant drawing a lot of the attention, though. Bryant, 5 catches, 48 yards. It wasn't surprised that he got hurt. Didn't really play much at all in the preseason. Was dehydrated. That was, you could see that coming a mile away, and then got hurt. So that's what happens when guys don't play a lot in the preseason. So hopefully the Cowboys can stay afloat with him out in the meantime. Him not playing in the preseason means that Romo got a chance to work with the other weapons. So we'll see how that goes. Now, going back to Odell Beckham Jr., this is an important side note for this game. I want to give Dominic Rogers-Cromartie some love. He did play well. I thought that was a bad pass interference call. However, I do think Prince Mukamara got away with a few, so it makes up for it. But generally, I like to see guys play. Let them see the defensive backs play, have a little contact. Odell Beckham Jr. 5 catches for 44 yards. Got to give a lot of credit to Morris Claiborne. Claiborne has been labeled a bust. You didn't hear a word about Morris Claiborne last night. He was in Odell Beckham Jr.'s pocket all night long. Played very well. Most of Beckham's catches came. There was one where he was lined up in the slot. He had Tyler Patman on him. I saw him get a few against Brandon Carr. I didn't really see him get many against Morris Claiborne, that is. And altogether, he only had 5 catches for 44 yards. Even if every catch was against Claiborne, Claiborne still would have won that battle. He was lined up on him most of the night. Claiborne, we talked about him in training camp. Everything looked like he was coming back into form. If Morris Claiborne can play well, I was happy when the Cowboys drafted him number 6 overall. Obviously been labeled a bust. A lot of teams would have picked him though, so he would have been a bust no matter what. A lot of teams would have gone after him. Morris Claiborne played very well, so we'll see how that goes for the Cowboys the rest of the year. If he can really solidify that and be the player they expected, especially with Byron Jones, you can be all right, especially since Orlando Scandrick's going to be out for the year. So we're really going to have to watch out for that. All right, so that's it for the games for this weekend. We're going to take a few minutes here. We're going to give you the preview for tonight's game, the Vikings against the 49ers and the Falcons and the Eagles. And we're also going to give you a little tennis. The men's U.S. Open final just ended last night. Going to give you a little perspective on that in just a few minutes. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you in a little bit.